2013, he joined the Atlanta Hawks as a video coordinator under
Mike
Budenholzer. That's right.
Can't
circle
escape
moment.
him. Cannot escape him.
And then there were two. The Phoenix Suns coaching search is nearing its end, and we here at PHNX Suns are breaking it down. It's Stephen and Erik for another trending mini pod here on PHNX Sports or PHNX Suns. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, 5-star reviews if you're listening on audio. Go a long way in helping to grow the show. Stephen, feels like we've been in a coaching search for the Suns for about forever now, and according to Shams Charania, it has been whittled down to 2 finalists from the same team. Cavaliers associate head coach Johnnie Bryant and assistant coach Jordan Ott have advanced to the final round of Phoenix Suns head coach interviews. They will have an in-person interview with Matt Ishbia this week. A decision is expected to be made this week. So the list has been whittled down. No Dave Bliss, no Chris Quinn, no Sean Sweeney. It's 2 Cavaliers assistants. How do you feel at this point?
Well, considering the stark shift with everything that happened with Cleveland from last season, which was okay, to this most recent season that was exceptionally great in the regular season in particular, you could pick much worse teams to want to kind of base your new head coaching search off of.
Sure.
And to that point, one of the more evolved approaches for teams in recent history has come from this Cleveland Cavaliers team from the 2024-2025 season. Obviously, spearheading a ton of that was Kenny Atkinson. And looking at where Kenny Atkinson derives from, most recently spending time with the Golden State Warriors prior to being hired as the head coach of the Cavs, they move with very modern approaches, modern in communication, modern in approach to offense, modern in defensive process, modern in roster construct, modern in a day-to-day approach. There's a common denominator with all of that stuff I mentioned, and that's what I was hoping the Suns would value most with their next head coach that they would be considering, and especially when we get to the top 2, top 3. And here we are with 2 coaches that directly #align with all of that.
#alignment. You love to hear it. Let's dive into Johnnie Bryant first and foremost. Let's just give a brief history, Stephen, about who Johnnie Bryant is, what he's done, and maybe what is a strength that he can bring.
Yeah, so he's a coach that's pretty much coached his way up to the highest point on the team's bench as a head assistant coach under Kenny Atkinson his most recent season. He's been in the NBA as a coach in particular since the 2012 season. So spanning quite some time. Yeah, exactly. In 2012, he was a player development assistant with the Utah Jazz, and then spent time across multiple seasons with the Jazz going through 2019, 2020. And then from there, he went on to the New York Knicks, spent time with them from 2020 to 2024 as an associate head coach. And then obviously this most recent season, he spent time with the Cleveland Cavaliers as their head assistant coach. So he's been actually assistant head coaching time in both New York and Cleveland. So needless to say, he's understood it from the bottom all the way up. And within all of that, I think for people that don't necessarily know the day-to-days of assistant coaches, they typically get tasked with a ton of the kind of game planning on per opponents. So not necessarily always having the full scout, but putting together specific game plans for matchups over the course of the season. Him having a hand in that consistently as a head assistant coach, as well as a skill development background, I think puts him in a perfect position to get the most out of the rosters that the Suns are looking to come with going forward.
Yeah, I think player relations is something that Johnnie Bryant, I guess in theory, we don't really know for sure, but in theory, he would be a strength.
By all accounts of his time with the Knicks in particular.
And in fact, there are some links to Julius Randle and his time with the Knicks and their relationship growing very strongly there. Obviously, being a former player, and there are just certain coaches that in NBA circles, it's like, this guy is up next. And both of these coaches, from everything that we've heard, are in that circle of, these guys are going to be head coaches eventually. Now, on Jordan Ott's side of things, I'd say he's a little bit more of an unknown quantity, a little bit more of a wild card. In fact, I don't even know if his birthday is public information. So it's like, all right, who really is this guy? But Jordan Ott has also been in the NBA for a little bit over a decade now. In 2013, he joined the Atlanta Hawks as a video coordinator under Mike Budenholzer. That's right.
Can't
circle
escape
moment.
him. Cannot escape him.
No, he is technically from the Bud coaching tree, but in the same way that Bud is from the Pop coaching tree, it doesn't always matter. He then moved on in 2016 to become a Brooklyn Nets assistant coach under Kenny Atkinson, who he would then join up in Cleveland this past year. But he stayed as an assistant coach under Jacques Vaughn and Steve Nash all the way from 2016 to 2022. So much like David Fizdale, sticking around in an organization despite changes in the head coach, despite changes in the roster, was seen as a valuable enough voice to have a little continuity there. In 2022, he then jumped from Brooklyn to LA, joining the Lakers as an assistant coach under Darvin Ham. In 2024, he then parted for the Cleveland Cavaliers. However, he was in contention for the Charlotte Hornets head coaching job that eventually went to Boston assistant Charles Lee. He was in those round of interviews and was rumored to get pretty far there, but now an assistant coach under Kenny Atkinson. Of course, also with Jordan Ott, you have the Michigan State of it all. He was a Michigan State alum. He has a master's degree in athletic administration from Michigan State. He also was able to get his undergrad in Penn State, was the manager for the men's basketball team, and a video coordinator at Michigan State while getting his master's there as well. And then, of course, worked his way up to the NBA. I do have a quote here from his hometown boys basketball coach saying, "He is the hardest working person I know. As far as being dedicated, every time you think Jordan has met his expectations, he always finds a way to go further," said Dane Pollock, the McConnellsburg boy basketball coach, and also Jordan Ott's cousin. Says, "We come from a little bit of nothing. You talk about a guy who proves that hard work pays off. He never played college basketball. He can't walk into an interview and say he played against Southern, Fulton, or Forbes Road. That doesn't mean anything. He has earned everything that he's got." Of course, though, Stephen, it's going to be tabbed as Michigan State ties. Is that a concern or a worry for you about potentially hiring Jordan Ott?
It's not, only because the recent successes that he's seen on a professional level, obviously spending time with Kenny Atkinson in Brooklyn, and then obviously being able to re-up with Kenny in Cleveland and to see the historic lengths of success that they enjoyed throughout the regular season. I think he's positioned to having a breadth of experience, no different than Johnny, but in context similar and different as well, that would be malleable for the Suns. That would be something that they would desire to have going forward for sure. So no, the Michigan State ties are cool, and I know discourse is discourse, so naturally people will jump to that first. But if you look at his recent history and the successes within that and who he's had success with, he's a more than worthy candidate. And to your point, the fact that he's been involved in multiple head coaching searches over the last couple of seasons suggests that as well.
And this is just a guy that seems like he loves coaching. He helped coach the Dominican Republic national team. He, according to Brendan Clean, who's putting this out there, Ott also signed on to be an assistant for Latvia in the Eurobasket later this summer and was expected to coach the Cavs Summer League team in Las Vegas. Of course, that would be put to the side, at least the Summer League part of it, if he becomes a Suns head coach. Not sure.
Well, maybe not.
The Cavs? Not that he won't be the Cavs.
No,
Summer
no.
League coach.
He might be the Suns.
That
I'm thinking
would be
about
crazy.
the Suns head coach.
He
for sure.
honestly, he might, because he'd be a first-time head coach. I would honestly prefer if he was there.
Yep.
Different topic. I wonder if Ryan Dunn and Osa are going to play in Summer League. But
I know they want to.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
Draymond played.
Another fun little note with Jordan Ott before we wrap up here. Jordan Ott is married to Jordan Ott. Yes, that's right. Jordan Ott's wife is also named Jordan. Do you like that move? Because I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody doing that.
That ain't none of my business. as long as she's 10 toes down about the demands of having a spouse that's a head coach, that's all I would care about, honestly. I won't dive into all of that. I'll let Twitter tackle that one once that hits the waves.
All right. Your final thoughts. Give me your choice out of these two for the next Phoenix Suns head coach, and maybe how you feel about the names that didn't make it onto this final round.
Yeah, I've sided with Johnnie Bryant for quite some time. I'm not going to shift that at any point now, especially as the finish line nears. Not to be right, but more so because of the reasons that I felt like he's been the pick for them, and that's the modern approach, the communication part, having his communication skills and relationship building being lauded as one of his best characteristic traits as a coach. And seeing that as something that he could build off of as a head coach, I think that would be fun to see. I think he might be better suited to kind of harbor a culture and understand how to build that up foundationally and then expand upon that as well. I also think he has a good eye for the talent that would be needed to uphold the principles of the style of play that he would want to play to. So those reasons all being that I've spoken to multiple times, I feel like that's why he's the coach for them. But I don't see Jordan not as a wrong option in that. I just think that Johnny has a half stride leg up on him as far as that goes for me personally. But I am surprised that other names did not make it to the final round.
Yeah, Chris Quinn, of course, at the top of that list of names that I think both of us were expecting. Sean Sweeney gained a little traction there. Yeah. I'm a little less surprised about him than
I was
Chris
surprised
Quinn.
the traction he got last week.
Yeah,
because it kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, I'm not mad at it, but yeah, surprising for sure.
With who I think is the best choice here, I would also roll with Johnnie Bryant. There is this scenario being floated out there. I think it's just by Suns fans, but just in general that taking both of them, you know, one is a head coach, one is an associate head coach. That would be a big FU to Dan Gilbert, who is Matt Ispia's mortgage rivalry. But it would also be a kind of a hedging your bets move. Now, you only do that if both of them are on board, especially whoever you're hiring as a head coach, because you don't want to give off a vote of no confidence. But I'm all for Johnnie Bryant. I think what edges it out for me over a Jordan Ott, who I do believe is qualified. It's not the Michigan State thing, although I do think that from an optics perspective, hiring somebody from Michigan State would be a tough sell to fans. Fair or not, I think it'd be a tough sell. But for me, it's the player relations side of things and how important that is in the NBA. And when you look at Frank Vogel, when you look at Mike Budenholzer, sure, there were failures on the court, specifically more so with Bud and his game planning than Vogel. But what was the main problem with those two, Stephen? Like, what superseded that?
Felt like they didn't connect with the players on the roster,
and that
especially at the top.
And if you're planning on going through a couple years of maybe some rough riding before you get back to the top, you need to have a coach who's ready to handle that. I think it's Johnnie Bryant. You think it's Johnnie Bryant, but what do you think it is? What is the best choice for the Suns? Jordan Ott, Johnnie Bryant, or a name that did not advance on to the final round of Suns interviews? Of course, PHNX Suns is live 5 days a week at 3 o'clock, bringing you all the latest coaching news, mailbag Mondays, trade machine Tuesdays, draft prospects, free agents, all sorts of fun on PHNX Suns right here on PHNX Sports. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button as well. If you're new to PHNX, we do have a ton of other content here, from Cardinals to Diamondbacks, ASU, U of A. Of course, Stephen is dead set in the middle of Mercury coverage as their season keeps on going in a much better way than the Suns season went on. You can check all that out on PHNX Sports. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. You can follow Steven, don't call him Steve, at Steven PG3. That's Steven with a PH. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. We'll be back with more breaking news from the Suns coaching search later this week.
We all silly like the mayor.